Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the New to the Game podcast. This is Chris, and I am here with Ben Schneider. Tonight, we are going to be talking about the 1,000-foot view of systems, processes, and kind of the ways to stay consistent in your business when you're setting up your processes and systems. We're going to talk a little bit about customer management softwares. We're going to talk about some of the other big picture views of why systems and consistency and processes in your company is important. And we're going to dive into a little bit of detail, but we're also going to kind of cover the 1,000-foot view and then circle back to the nitty gritty of some of these topics in future episodes. So to get us started, Ben, give me kind of like I said, give me your 1,000-foot view of why having systems, processes, and standards in your business is important. Because I know this is a huge passion point for you and one of the things you feel strongly about. So give the folks listening an introduction to why this is so important.
Systems and processes are kind of like their own thing, because that's more procedures and standard operating procedures, things of that nature. So I won't place so much emphasis on that this episode, but it is kind of an important thing when you're thinking about systems within your company. So on the very high level view on all of these things, it is, in my opinion, I think it's a non-negotiable in a modern trades business. The tradition for years has been one where basically people will operate. I mean, they use their notes on their iPhone. I know you joke about that often, Chris, or they will literally operate their business like as old fashioned as it comes. Like literally they have like a portfolio in their car that they basically operate their entire business out of, just pen and paper, literally. And what the challenge that creates when you essentially lack systems is, and when I talk about systems, I want to be specific on the definition of that. Like that is software, especially that you would use for your company. So think about like spreadsheets, think about CRMs, think about your construction management software, think about your scheduling software. A lot of those can be kind of interconnected. Some of you are the type that have like 50 different systems and you just want them all to be integrated with one another. But the way that I perceive it is that it is an absolute critical tool if you are a person who values efficiency, values the ability to do more but with less time, or values the ability to offer what might be described as a seamless experience to your clients, or even on the more like technical side of it, a legal side of it, like actually have good, healthy structure and systems to back you up if there's a messy situation, be it a legal situation, or be it just to validate and verify for your clients that documentation is accurate or things of that nature. The challenge when essentially you don't have those things and when you still operate with pen and paper or pen and pad is essentially, if I were to put an example to it, it's like you're starting a race. And I mean, let's just picture you're starting a race running around a high school track and you're starting at the very, very beginning, whereas the people with systems are starting substantially further away from the start line, so they're further ahead in the race. Better way to say it would be just closer to the finish line. So they're able to get there a lot faster and a lot more effectively with a lot more ease and smoothness and not as much demand and tension. So you don't have to solve as many problems. Again, so that's broad coverage of what it looks like, but I think that it's, again, in my opinion, a non-negotiable. If you're looking to be able to establish a modern day trades business, you have to be able to understand how to take advantage and utilize systems and software for your company.
Absolutely. And I know both of us have trialed, used, kept, gotten rid of, etc., about 100 different solutions. I mean, I joke all the time that like my company, before I bought my current company from the previous owner, I joke with people all the time that she was successful for 20 years using a spiral bound notebook that sat on her desk, a Rolodex of index cards, and a QuickBooks account on her desktop computer with Windows XP from 2007. And it is more than possible to run a successful company with super like rudimentary but solid, reliable long-term systems. But at the same time, in the modern trades business, like you said, you're almost doing a disservice to your clients and your business's future by not taking advantage of how many options there are for automations, for making things more simplified and repeatable. So give the audience a few examples. Like, obviously, I think almost everybody listening to this has probably heard of a CRM, but give a little bit of an intro about like, what is a CRM? Why is it probably the first software that you should look at as a new business owner? And what does it allow you to do for your business?
Customer relationship management software system. There's not an S at the end of it, but yeah. And essentially the goal of that is it is a tool for you to have, essentially think about your iPhone and you would have a collection of all of your contacts. Most of the time a CRM is going to have a very helpful tool of like, essentially if you were to visit that customer's page or their profile, whatever you want to call it, it's going to have all of the necessary information of the interactions you've had with that person, deposits you've collected from that person, estimates you've sent that person, approved or paperwork, whatever it may be, work orders, scope of work. The goal of it is to be able to be essentially the overarching platform that you go to when you need information. It's where you store data and it's where you can work with the data that is inside of it. So on the construction side or the service side, most of the time, again, it's going to be more focused on invoices, estimates, work orders, things of that nature. In other businesses, it might have different emphases and different key points. Some CRMs are extremely intuitive and they can track literally every text message, every phone call. It has recordings of all of it. But at the end of the day, it's literally just a tool that helps you efficiently and without having to literally store everything in your brain or on a piece of paper, most of the necessary information that's needed to be able to work with that client successfully.
Awesome. So, and just a snippet about that, Ben, at what point in a new business do you feel like somebody needs a CRM? Like, imagine you're the 23-year-old kid, you just started a window cleaning company, you've gotten your first 5, 10, 15, 20 jobs. So far, you've just been putting contacts in your iPhone, and then you've got a notes page or an Excel spreadsheet on your laptop that has all your lists and data in it. Maybe you have something like Square for sending invoices, but besides that, you don't really have a way to track clients yet. So like at what point is investing that money and time into A, learning a CRM and how to use it efficiently, and B, spending the $50, $100, $150, $200 plus, and it can go crazy high, obviously, per month for a CRM. When is that important? Like how quickly should a new business owner consider getting one?
Possible. I mean, I think, again, I treat it as something of like, for me, imagining operating without my CRM, even on day one, like if I were to go out tomorrow and start a new business, like my number one thing that I would do right away, outside of like maybe the legal stuff of starting the business, would be literally like, let's just get a CRM in place. Like, let's pay the quick subscription. I know it's going to pay for itself super quickly. Let's just get it in place. It's the whole plant a tree mindset. Like the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago. The second best time is today, because the reality of a good CRM is the earlier you are able to start it. Most CRMs have a lot of customization, a lot of work that you can put into essentially optimizing it for your company. So if you start it tomorrow and have it just be literally butt naked basic, and then allow it to scale into something that is much, much more intuitive, much more user friendly, much more cohesive to, again, whatever it is that your business does, you're going to be so grateful that your past self did that.
Yeah, I 100% agree, Ben. I was curious what you'd say to that. My personal opinion is if I had $1,000 in my bank account and I was going to start a company tomorrow, the order would be LLC, license, bond, insurance, CRM. like you said, it would be the legal stuff and then a CRM. It'll probably be the first thing I spend money on besides whatever equipment I need to actually physically do the work I'm planning on doing.
Yeah, you use the
like if I was going to start a pressure washing company. Yeah, no, like straight up. Like if I was going to start a pressure washing company tomorrow and I was dead broke, like you imagine like those TV shows like Undercover Millionaire or whatever, and I had like $100 in my pocket in a pickup truck kind of thing. Like straight up, man, like it would be the legal requirements to have a business if that was necessary, which obviously if you have the means, you should always be licensed, bonded, and insured. And it would be CRM would be the very next thing I buy besides maybe like my pressure washer that I need to sell my first job. But to be honest, it'd probably even be before that, because what's the point of buying a pressure washer if you have no jobs to use it for? I'd rather have a CRM and say, hey, I'm gonna schedule a week's worth of work, but I'm gonna start next week, and this week I'm gonna sell 5 jobs, get my CRM all dialed in and set up, and use the deposits from those first few clients to buy that first machine. I mean, it's crazy. Like I can't just put a value on how important it is sometimes for people. And it's mind blowing to me that there are so many people that you and I both know that made it years in business without having some sort of system management for their company.
It's one of those rare things inside of your business. I love investing in myself. I love investing into my business. It's one of the things that I get excited about. So investing time or investing again, it's generally speaking, it's not that much money to get a CRM or a software to help your business. It's one of those things that all of the time and all of the effort, like so I guess there might be an obstacle or an objection that might say, oh, I just don't have the time for that. But the reality is that if you're willing to like just do a deep work session and get, I don't know, 3-4 hours dedicated to like building out your CRM, or maybe trying to identify, okay, what do I want my like client experience to look like? If you're willing to do that, like the reality is that 2 to 3 hours, 4 hours, however long you spend is going to pay for itself. Maybe not like it may not be 4 hours next week. It might save you 30 minutes next week, but then over time, 4 or 5 weeks start to go by, you start to get flow with it. It's going to be incredible. Like one of the best example that I would give is with estimating. Now, obviously, if you've been in the industry long enough, you know that estimating is one of those things. Like most contractors, there's like this common thing of like, oh, well, they came out and they gave us a quote, or we talked to them, but then we're still waiting on our quote from them. They said they're going to get our quote to us by Wednesday of next week or something like that. Because essentially the reality for those people is that they're going out there, they're taking their measurements, they're doing whatever they need to do. They probably are rushing through that process because they've got so much other stuff they know they have to do in the back of their mind. And they get home, or they maybe plan a set day in the week of like, this is my estimate preparation day. And they have to sit down with like a spreadsheet or a calculator and all of these different little things that they have to toy with. They're pulling up their Home Depot page or their Site One landscape supply. And they're basically trying to figure out, okay, how much am I supposed to charge this person? They're doing all this math in their head. And at the end of the day, it takes them 30, 45 minutes, 2 hours to prepare a $4,000 plant estimate or something like that. Like that's the reality for a lot of people in the landscape world. And the CRM that I use now has literally empowered me to be able to, as long as I know the square footage, and I will say I have a relatively more systematized business. And since I only offer one service, it's a little bit more easy for me to do this. But estimating I do the estimate on site. Like I meet with the person, I walk the yard. After I'm done with it, it takes me about 5 minutes to prepare an estimate. That's an example. Again, just a small one. Again, general contractors might be a much different world or realm within that. But there is a very real element of this where you don't have to spend crazy amounts of time doing stuff like that. Like you can actually save that time with something like a CRM. And like with formulas and all this stuff, again, it takes work and time to be able to get it in place. But I just cannot speak enough to the value of what that time saved can do, but also how that is able to enhance it. Like imagine if I had 4 hours extra of time just to be able to dedicate towards serving clients more effectively. It benefits you across the board.
Yeah, 100%. So I think we've touched on CRM enough to give people the idea. For all those listening, we are going to do a future episode about how to pick a CRM, what some different options are. Between me and Ben, we've used half a dozen different softwares, and we've probably done trials and research on 20. There are a million CRMs out there. I feel like I see a new one announced every 2 weeks on Facebook and online and in the circles that I'm in. Both Ben and I have opinions about what the best softwares are for both construction management, for service companies, and there are some great ones specifically for certain industries like landscaping, for example. But at the end of the day, what you will have to do is pick the one that has the features that you want, and the abilities that you want and fits your budget. Because you can spend an absolute fortune on a CRM. When you get up into the enterprise level of CRMs, I mean, there's a CRM for service companies that you have to write them a $10,000 check just to set up the system for you. I mean, it's crazy how much money you can spend on one once you get up into the higher levels. But a CRM, like Ben was saying, I mean, you talk to guys like Tommy Mello and A1 Garage Door Service, and he credits Service Titan with growing his company from $10 million a year to $50 million a year. Like he says that is completely based on Service Titan, which is mind-boggling to think about, but I believe it because a CRM can make that big of an impact if it is used correctly. I want to move on to the next thing. So we're kind of at our time already, but Ben, I want to talk a little bit about, besides your CRM and the basics. So I'm going to set aside, like we're going to talk about QuickBooks and we're going to talk about accounting in another episode. I know you're going to dig into a whole course about that at some point, but besides the basics of an accounting software, your Microsoft Office programs like Excel and Word and your note-taking apps and things like that, give the audience a few other things to mull over of what are the other things as a new business owner that you would want to consider besides your CRM. You've got that in place. You've got your basic programs. What are some other things that are going to help you move the needle in a new business? Some other software programs, some other systems, some other ideas to give people.
This subject can be counterintuitive or almost sound hypocritical sometimes because of how I've talked about in the past. I mean, one of my recent episodes was on simplicity. And so I do want to kind of bring it back full circle to the simplicity mindset, because it is very easy to be in a world where you have 20 different systems and you're trying to like figure out how to integrate them with one another and have them perfectly work all in perfect cohesion. The reality is that if you're really just in this place of just starting, like, don't try to overcomplicate this. Like, I would start simply, get a Google Drive or a OneDrive or whatever software you feel comfortable using. Just try to store all of your necessary business documents in one single place. Let's start there. Obviously, the CRM is, again, more towards like the customer management relationship side of things, but something to organize your files. Try to keep them in one location. Don't have it in your documents and then one in your downloads and then one in your OneDrive and then 5 in your Google Drive, because that's just like, it's very disorganized. So it's going to be extremely valuable to do that. The second thing is to essentially, almost like you would develop an org chart for your company, which, for those that don't know, an org chart is essentially highlighting each department of your company and then just basically the different roles and responsibilities that fall under each department that would make the company a operating machine. So in a similar fashion, go through each area of your company. So marketing, sales, financials, operations, and essentially just kind of dive into each system and say, okay, what are the systems that would be really helpful for me to have in these areas? If it's financial, it could be your online banking, it could be your QuickBooks, it could be maybe your payroll or something like that, a software you use for that. If it's your estimating and sales, then it's your estimating software, it's your invoicing software, things of that nature. And then if it's bridging over into marketing, okay, well, what am I doing to track my lead flow and things of that nature? Again, I don't want to like make it super overcomplicated, because in many ways it's not. But in many ways, you're going to have to plow through some muck of complication and harder, especially if you're not tech savvy, some harder territory for you to kind of figure out how to make all of this stuff work in cohesion in a way that makes sense within your business. And then I would probably just have a file. I mean, it could be something as simple as just a piece of paper that you have, and just basically write down each of these systems, each of the systems you feel like you're going to apply to each of these areas of your business. So that way you don't get too carried away into overcomplication. And what you end up having is 30 softwares, 3 of them you actually use, 7 of them you look at every now and then, and the other 20 are just subscription fees that you're paying that don't have a purpose. Like that's an actual reality for companies. Like, I have been there. Chris, I think you've been there as well. Avoid that. But yeah, it's helpful just to, again, keep it simple, but recognize there's a learning process, but it is an extremely, in my opinion, one of the more important things that you can learn is just how to manage tech and software in your company, and know just how to make sure they're, again, in line with the overarching vision of your company.
Yeah. And I think that there's a lot, like that's definitely a topic that we get on the rabbit hole on and dig into, because there are hundreds and hundreds of software solutions for a company that's new, and it's very easy to get the like ADD squirrel rabbit brain and just say like, oh, this will help me save time. Oh, this will help me save time. This will help me save time. And all of a sudden you have this like spider web of craziness that you've put yourself in because you have 10 different things doing the same thing. So it's definitely worth talking to other business owners in your industry and your space. And one of the ways that I view it is if you have to do the same task more than 2 or 3 times a day, and it's a task that could be managed with a software solution, it should be on your list of things to consider.
Yeah.
So like Ben was talking about, like entering customer data into your CRM is a no-brainer thing to automate eventually. I guess one thing that I'll say is the one plug for the one software that I would consider besides a CRM almost immediately is a software called Zapier. And if you're not familiar with that, for those listening, Zapier is basically a tool that you can use to connect one software to another to automate tasks and make them automatic. So it can do almost a limitless, indefinite amount of things. So to give you some examples, you have a website that somebody fills out an estimate request form on, and Zapier will take that data and automatically create a customer file in your CRM. You can have it set up where when a new customer file is created in your CRM, they get an email from your company email saying, hey, we're grateful you reached out. We'll be with you shortly. We usually get estimates back in 24 hours. You can automate it that if a customer sends you an attachment to your company email, it's automatically updated to your Google Drive, like Ben was saying, so that your files are all in the same place. And it just is such a rabbit hole of craziness, the things you can do.
Yeah.
There are thousands and thousands and thousands of automations you can do in your company that will save you hours of time. And I think that's probably one of the one tools that I'll plug that I actually will say, I would say there is 0 businesses out there that couldn't benefit from it.
Yeah. I mean,
unless you are truly a guy that all you do is you go out and you shovel dirt, then maybe not. But I don't know. I think that any company on the planet could benefit from Zapier, especially if you have a CRM, because there's so many tasks within your CRM that can be automated.
One of our core values, elements of our core values is essentially don't start with no, start with how. And that can be, that just inherent principle, like we apply it constantly in our side of our business, and we are constantly developing little things. I mean, we're 6 years into business now, and we're still exploring little ways that we can improve our time efficiency and things like that. So obviously, again, don't get you should maybe feel a little bit overwhelmed, but it's one of those things where just show up 1% every day and realize that like little touches, little tweaks will scale with time, and they are building blocks on top of each other. It's not like you're just wiping the slate clean and starting fresh every day. So yeah, never start with no, always start with how. But yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, we're going to wrap this up. Ben, besides what we've talked about, any last thoughts for that 1,000-foot view of systems? Any parting thoughts to leave the audience with about kind of this picture as a whole? We're going to have more episodes coming out about specifically CRMs and about how to pick one. We're going to have episodes about individual systems and software solutions. We might even, just a little preview, we might even have some interviews coming up with people that me and Ben have relationships with that do software management for a living. Like the CEO of the software that Ben uses and one of the co-founders of the software that I use. So those might be coming out at some point in the future, depending on how long until we get there. But any parting thoughts, Ben, or any kind of wrap up things you want to leave the audience with?
I will never emphasize this more, of just being able to make sure that you don't feel over intimidated by these types of conversations. While they are, I mean, I say statements like it's a non-negotiable, and I agree with that statement fully, but don't feel as if you're going to absolutely screw your business over if you don't have this thing in place tomorrow and it's not perfectly efficient. Like, it's okay to be able to start very basic, but yeah, get the basics in place. The basics in place will help you so much. And then with time, you can start to adapt and increase and improve.
Awesome. Well, at the end of the day, we are appreciative for all of you guys listening. Sorry we've been a little bit delayed to get content out the last couple of weeks. Both me and Ben are wrapping up our busy seasons in our companies, and it's been a little bit wild. We are going to be trying to get episodes out at least once or twice a week going forward. If you are new to the game and new to our podcast, we are New to the Game podcast on YouTube, and we are also on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Samsung Podcasts, and almost every other podcast platform out there. The video version of all of our episodes is available on YouTube, so go give us a follow, check us out there. And most importantly, we have a community on Skool, Skool. If you're not familiar, it's a community platform where you can form groups and communities around whatever topic you're passionate about. And for us, that is helping new entrepreneurs that are trying to get into the trades, or people that already have businesses and want help or feedback or a community of like-minded people. So if you like what we're talking about, you like our content, and you want to spend more time getting to know us and other people that are involved, go find us on Skool. The link will be in the show notes or in the area that is below whatever you're listening on. And we'd love to have you. It is absolutely free. There's no sales pitch. We're just trying to provide people value and have people come out and hang out with us and build a community around what we're doing. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you guys on the next one.